Hey everyone, Steve Britton here, and I'd like to introduce you to my cat, one of my cats. This is Junior. He's not too thrilled about this idea, but he's a cute little one. He's a couple of years old. He's a good friend. Say hello, everyone. There you go. There's Junior. So he can hop off my lap and he can go off and do his thing while I do my podcast for today. So let's get started and see what we come up with for Wednesday, April the 25th, 2018. Now, my initial intent was to get an episode out every day, but yesterday kind of got away from me a little bit, so sadly I have to make up for it now. Well, at least I have two stories to cover. Now, first up, a twin-engine aircraft with 6 passengers made a forced landing on a Calgary city street after the pilot radioed to the control tower at Calgary International Airport that he was running out of fuel. The miracle in this landing is that the pilot shaved off the end of his right-hand wing while he was landing, but he still managed to put the airplane down safely and come to a stop without anyone getting hurt. Now, this happened just before 6 a.m., so traffic was fairly light, but since, of course, that's a rush hour route, you can just imagine what that did for the traffic. Now, I really hope that the pilot and the passengers had a clean change of underwear with them. All right, now with that story out of the way, it's time to jump in now and get started, as this next story is unfortunately rather heavy. Alek Minassian has been charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of attempted murder after deliberately crashing a van into a crowd of people at a major intersection in Toronto back on Monday. Now, as expected, numerous people are looking to make sense of this tragedy, and I even mentioned it on Monday at the end of my own podcast. At the time, I cautioned you not to jump to conclusions, and as it turns out, that was a very good idea. Now, the attack itself resembled a number of prior terrorist attacks perpetrated around the world. You might remember, for example, London Bridge. These attacks have been carried out in the past by Islamic extremists. So, of course, when the news of the incident broke on Monday, it was only natural for people to assume that this was, as well, a case of Islamic extremism. This is precisely why I said that we shouldn't jump to conclusions. I've said this before as well, and I've taken a lot of flack for it. People want to believe what matches their prejudices. Now, by the way, prejudice does not imply bigotry. It just means to prejudge. And so many people prejudged this incident to be an extremist act of terrorism. But we have now learned a lot more about Alek Minassian and his motivations. So, here's what we actually know about Alek Minassian. Now, first, his family name, Minassian, is Armenian in origin, and Armenia's main religious demographic isn't Muslim at all, but is actually Christian. It's the Armenian Apostolic Church. So, while we can't be certain that Alek Minassian is not Muslim, based simply on this particular fact, it does strongly suggest that his motives weren't extremist or religious extremist in nature. Investigating reporters discovered that Minassian was, until this year anyway, a student at Seneca College. And if this is the same person, and it seems to be, then his classmates described him as not talking much. Except when necessary, of course, and he had few friends, and he exhibited numerous nervous tics. In other words, he was extremely socially awkward. Now, conversely, his classmates also described him as being an absolute technical wizard. That's quite interesting information there. Now, more information that we know about him. A house reportedly belonging to the Minassian family in Richmond Hill was cordoned off by the police yesterday during the course of their investigation, and reporters investigating the incident found a quote by a lady named Sona Minassian back in 2009, which referenced her son having Asperger's syndrome. That's a autism spectrum disorder. At the time, she's quoted in reference to a program called Helpmate. My son would spend afternoons working with Helpmate. They were sensitive to his needs and how he and now, rather, he has a job at Compugen here in town. He was able to take the experience provided by Helpmate and apply it. This kind of service for my son wasn't available elsewhere. I am convinced that if we didn't have Helpmate, my son would not have had such an opportunity. Now, there was no reference to Alec by his name in this quote, but what we saw earlier regarding to how his classmates at Seneca College described his personality, along with this quote, they do start to put together the puzzle pieces and build a bit of a profile on this gentleman. Now, shortly before the incident happened in Toronto, he posted a rather cryptic message on Facebook, which he referenced an individual named Elliot Rodger back in 2014. Elliot Rodger did a mass shooting, unfortunately, and then took his own life. Private Recruit Manassian Infantry 00010, wishing to speak to Sergeant 4chan, please. C232-94161. The Incel Rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rodger. Yeah. The military confirmed that Manassian was in the infantry division for about 2 months, and then he voluntarily withdrew, and the numbers that he used in that quote are definitely in the correct format for the Canadian military. Incel is a self-selected term referencing people who are what's so-called involuntarily celibate. Chads and Stacys are referred to by those who regard themselves as incel as sexually active individuals who will have nothing to do with those who are incel. Chads and Stacys are the names used by these guys, and it's not a very nice term at all. From what I can see, the incel people feel rejected by the opposite sex, and they were getting pretty frustrated and angry and such. So putting all this together, here we have a person with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder. It makes it very difficult for him to interact with people socially, especially in terms of getting a date, and he therefore gets very angry and likely he's a misogynist. Now, eventually, all this built up to a breaking point, and he snapped. Now, several people on Twitter referenced this as an act of terror. To me, that hinted they were suggesting that it actually was terrorism. But in further conversations with me, they've clarified that they didn't necessarily mean terrorism, but they were referencing that it was an act. It was a terrifying act, and I think we can all agree on that. Now, while it wasn't, in my view, I don't think it was terrorism. It definitely was a crime, and I suggest that it was a crime that was probably motivated by hate. So it was a hate crime. Tragically, his lawyer he might try to push for a not criminally responsible defense. Some people call it insanity. Now, I don't agree, but if it's successful, at least it'll put him into an institution where he can get treatment and the public's protected from him. Now, the other tragedy is perhaps if he had received better support throughout his life to begin with, maybe, and I stress maybe, this crime would have been prevented. Now, we'll never know for certain, and that's really, really sad. My thoughts and prayers are with the families of all those affected by this crime. I'm Steve Britton.